So last year, was it last year? Actually, I think it was 2 years ago. Am I the only one who has issues keeping track of time ever since the world started to end? I think it was late 2020. That's why I'm finding it very difficult. Anyway, I was approached on Twitter um, to work on a project called Dream Punk, and it was going to be a collaborative project where I would be part of an ensemble of artists doing a bunch of illustrations for this game, this board game. And I was excited about the idea because of the prompts. So the entire vibe of the game is surrealism. So a lot of the illustrations were going to be really, really crazy, wild ideas, and I thought it would be really fun and really cool if I could just work on something that's challenged me in that way. But I only had a few months, to do about 6 illustrations. So I wasn't able to do as much as I would like, but I thought that maybe doing fewer pieces that I'm more proud of would be a better way to spend my time. So I did about 8. And the cool thing is that it's finally here. They were kind enough to send me a final version of the product, and it looks really good actually. There are about 78 cards, not all of them are mine, of course, but I thought it would be a cool idea to talk about some of my pieces and explain to you the thought process I had while creating them. I thought that would be something fun to do this week. So the way this worked is that the creator would give me a bunch of prompts, like 4, and would tell me, if you don't like any of this, there is more where that came from. And a bunch of these would be really, really bizarre things. And I got to pick the one I was more interested in, and I'd do a final version or do an illustration based on that. The very first one I did was this one, and it was a very interesting one to work on because at this stage, if you notice, I was still doing the whole very light pieces with not a lot of contrast. The idea was that there were these like mystical or mythological looking creatures that were staring at a wall with a mule on a wall of a domestic cat and dog. So I had to find a way to do this in a way that would make sense and that the audience could get at a glance. That was difficult to do. The first challenge I encountered while doing this project was the format. These were going to be tarot-sized cards, so I had to do very vertical illustrations that I'm not really used to. I do more vertical pieces than horizontal, so it wasn't too bad, but trying to get all the details and trying to compose a piece in such a limited space was something that I found very challenging. And in this case, it took me a few tries to actually get something that I was happy with. As far as the colors on this piece, it all came together very seamlessly. Sometimes I have a very clear idea in my head of where I want to be color-wise, and this was one of those cases. So I'm glad that it turned out as good as it did. That being said, I feel like I could. I mean, it's been over a year at this point, so obviously I would have issues with it. In this case, I feel like I could have done a better job with the designs. The tail wasn't on the prompt, so I do like that I went for these strandy tails. I thought that was a cool visual, but the rest of the creature I feel like I could have done more with. But I still like how it's turned out. Hopefully you like it as well. Alright, so let's move on to the next piece. This one was the most challenging one I worked on. I think they were all challenging in their own way, but this one I feel was particularly difficult because the prompt was something that I couldn't easily wrap my head around. The description called for a torrential flood, like just coming at the viewer and someone in the foreground trying to sew the seams of like space, basically trying to sew reality to cover the flood before it breaks through, and that was a very difficult visual to sell, because you want to be far away enough that the audience can grasp the gravity and the epicness of the flood, but also you want to be close enough that you can show that someone is trying to sew the fabric of space and time. So that was something that was very difficult. I had a bunch of ideas where the character was farther away, but you could barely tell that something was being sewn because that action is something that is very close. Like, you can't tell that someone is sewing from a distance. You have to be real up close to them in order to see that they are indeed sewing. So I settled for kind of like a 3-point perspective thing where the character would be very close to the camera and then the flood would occupy most of the top of the illustration. And to make it as easy as possible for the viewers to understand what is going on, I decided to make basically the space where the character is sunny and with a rainbow, and the flood have very distinct colors. So it clashes and creates that visual contrast, so you could easily tell what is going on. I actually liked how this turned out. I wish I had more time to work on it. I mean, that's always the case with anything I do. I always wish I had infinite time so I could render the hell out of everything. But this was actually a really good skill to acquire. At the end of the day, if I'm going to be doing more client work, which unless it's a project that I really enjoy or really like the idea or concept of, it's not something that I usually go for. But if I want to do more client work, I'm going to have to work on my speed. The reason why these things take so long is because I like to spend a lot of time on the idea phase before putting anything down on the canvas. I like to take my time and look at the idea from every angle as much as best as I can, and then pick the best option for the situation. I kind of treat it like I'm directing a movie. When you're directing a movie, you kind of have to scout the location, find your actors, plan everything as best as you can. Think about the lighting, the position of everything, go buy your props. Everything takes time, and the same is true for illustration. And a lot of the illustrators I look up to, like Norman Rockwell or Leyendecker, for instance, they spent weeks on their paintings before they even began to do the final version. Basically, I've gotten better at coming up with ideas on the fly or as I work at the same time, rather than doing that step separate. So instead of having an idea phase and then the painting phase, you mash them together and come up with the idea while you're painting. Of course, this is something that some artists do, but it's really difficult because it requires you to juggle so much. You're already trying to juggle light and composition and colors and just all these crazy things at the same time, that doing that with design just seems like a crazy concept. The Dream Punk project was really fun and I really enjoyed working on it. I usually don't enjoy doing client work, which is why I spend most of my time doing personal pieces. But in this case, I really enjoyed doing it, and it's kind of cool getting to do something more collaborative in in the sense that, you know, a bunch of other artists contributed to this project as well. And something that I've been itching for in my art career is having something that I do together with other artists, like something more collaborative. When working in music, that's something that people do a lot, and I enjoy, but I haven't really found a way to do so whilst painting or while doing an illustration. A lot of illustration collabs I've seen, I don't really like, where someone paints half an illustration and the other person paints the other half. I'm trying to figure out if you have any idea of a way to do a collaborative piece with someone. Let me know. I feel like there's some angle there that I am not currently seeing. And yeah, I would love to work on a similar project in the future. So yeah, if you have more projects like this in a similar vein, be sure to hit me up in an email. I would love to like do something as whimsical as this in the future. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.